Hello, everyone. Hope you're all safe and well. Welcome to our art lecture today with Mayra Zamora. My name is Gina Advos, and I'm the coordinator for STC's Library Art Gallery program. On campus, we have an art gallery within each of our five main libraries, where we have exhibits, lectures, and workshops. Even though we are not currently able to get into these spaces to see the exhibits, I still wanted to meet today with Mayra to talk about some of her techniques, experiences, philosophies. So hopefully we can gain a little insight into herself as an artist and her artwork. We also have with us today Amanda Hasso. Amanda and I are both from Brownsville, but we met in Philadelphia about 12 years ago, where we were working at the same nonprofit. Amanda received her BA in communication from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia and her MLS from the University of Washington in Seattle. She currently works for the City of Austin in the Equity Office, and I thought she would be a great co-host as a librarian and expert in race and gender. A little bit about Mayra. She was born in Austin and raised in a small town of Tivoli, Texas. She received her bachelor's degree in art and her master's degree in secondary education from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. With that, let's jump in. Would you guys both like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how you got into your field. To Mayra.
I'll let Mayra.
Well, I got into art because of my art teacher, Mr. Garza. I grew up in a very small town, population less than 500. So I was very fortunate to have Mr. Garza from kinder all the way to 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
So people always were like, really? I'm like, yeah. So he was really the one who pushed me into the arts. And of course, and being first generation, kind of telling my parents, like, Mayra has a future in art, kind of just trust her and let her do her thing. So that's how I got into art.
Nice. Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, real quick. So I was born and raised on the border, like Gina said, in Brownsville, Texas. And I think growing up on the border is a very unique place and an experience. And so that has really informed my work moving forward. Even after leaving the valley will always be home. That I think it runs in your blood for the rest of your life. My parents still live there, so I still have that connection. And so when I moved away from the valley to Philadelphia, I think that's when I started learning more about myself and even our culture, which seems odd, but in Texas, as you all know, we don't get to learn a lot about our Mexican heritage in public education, at least in our textbooks. So it wasn't until I moved away that I really began to understand my ancestry. And so that sort of informed my interest in moving into libraries and archives, really preserving that history, making sure people understand that it's important and that it needs to be more accessible. And then I sort of use history to sort of inform the work I do for the city in the Equity Office, where we talk explicitly about racial equity. And I think we see disparate outcomes for our people of color. And it's been like that for hundreds of years. And so I think history is one intervention that we can use when we think about how we can change outcomes for our peoples.
Very true.
Makes me want to do a fist, girl.
Yeah. Always. Amanda, I think you're muted.
Okay, so yeah, Mayra, let's dig in. So I'd love to know what you're working on right now, and if mural projects coming up. We also, because we know it's such a strange and difficult time in this era of COVID-19, so we're wondering if that has impacted how you're making art or taking commissions.
Well, I think a lot of people are freaking out that they have to stay at home, but being an artist most of the time is I get to stay at home. There's a meme going on, it has 4 blocks and it says artist artist. And then it says artist social distancing, then artist during quarantine, and an artist after quarantine. And it's just the artist there painting. And that's what I'm doing. So it really hasn't affected my everyday life. It's kind of normal, but I have been able to do some work. Not a lot, because I'm not gonna lie, I took a break because I'm always go, 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 go. So the first couple of 3 weeks I was kind of like just chilling. But I am working on a luchador piece that you can see right there. And usually a lot of my work, it's very colorful. So this is the first time I'm actually introducing the black and white into a lot of my work. It's usually just the four corners, but no, I said, you know what, add some more black and white. And I think it's really cool, that positive, negative, and it just makes those colors pop. I am working on some commissions, and I actually started doing the series, which I call my Calavera portraits. So it's my friend Brandon, his daughter, and then son, and his girlfriend. And across the border is my codex, in which you have to decipher what it says. So a lot of people actually just think it's just shapes, but I'm like, no, you gotta look further. And then once I tell them there's a codex in there, then they get this look. So I love seeing people go like this. They like stand like this, and you get the crease in there, like, what are you talking about? You can really see that they're trying to figure out what it says. So, and then y'all are actually getting a sneak peek. I actually start a new mural tomorrow for a law firm called Herman and Herman. And this is something we've been planning since last year in June. And I cannot believe I'm finally going to be able to start it. So y'all have a first sneak peek. Hope y'all can see it. Wow. So it's going to be at least, I'm trying to pan this way.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be at least 50 feet wide, and it's going to be called Viva CC Texas. And that law firm, what they do is they always are involved with the community. So I really wanted to pay it forward and do something for Corpus, but not your typical Corpus, because, you know, what is the first thing you think of when you think of Corpus?
Selena.
Selena, of course. And where I was like, no. I said, I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. So I'm paying homage to the city and to education. So you will see Texas A&M Corpus Christi, my alma mater, and also Del Mar, because that's going to be my alma mater, hopefully in a couple of years, because I'm back in school for that. But to be honest, like I said, I'm quite enjoying just hanging out and catching up on work.
Slower pace.
Yeah.
That's a good segue. You mentioned, you know, you're in school right now. So what degree are you working on, and how does it fit into your practice?
Well, since about 2009, I've been calling myself a Chicana artist. And even here in Corpus, people don't even know the term Chicana. People here in Texas, we identify more as Tejanos. So I say, well, I'm a Tejana Chicana. And it all started because of Cheech Marin's collection at the Art Museum of South Texas. It was the first time I had walked in and felt a connection. And I was like, oh, la lechuza, like, these were the people that I grew up, oh, La Llorona, and I saw myself in the artwork. So ever since then, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to be a Chicana artist. But then I was like, you know, you call yourself that, but you don't know any of the history. So right now I'm working on my associates in Mexican American Studies. My dream and my goal is to eventually get my doctorate degree in that field. Yeah, because like you were saying, Amanda, you didn't really know a lot of the history and the cultural aspects, and I think as Latinos and Chicanos, we really need to learn it and pass the information to the other generations, so they can be like, you know, be proud of who they are.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah, but unfortunately, like, we were all of us yesterday were talking about how busy we were, so I only take one class per semester. So hopefully I'll finish maybe in a year and a half. I don't need that much, maybe 3 or 4 more classes to finish.
Oh, wow. And how many hours is the program? Because you probably have basics, right?
Yeah, because since I had my master's, like, I went and talked to the advisor. She was like, oh, and you already took at least 12 hours at Del Mar? She's like, you'll graduate soon. So I basically just have to take the classes. And there was only, like I said, I think five or six. And I'm on my second one right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And this one's more for me. Like, you know, the first one I felt it was like, you know, just trying to make your parents proud and getting that first degree. when it was the art degree. And then I told myself, well, what am I going to do with the art degree? To be honest with you, there's not a lot of jobs. And then I got my master's in education. And I like to say this to my students, that I failed after I was doing an internship in Sinton, right? And I failed my PPR exam by 4 points, 2 questions. So I was so close to being a full-time art teacher, but the universe had other plans. And then the next day I called the Art Museum of South Texas, and they had offered me two art positions, to be outreach coordinator and do arts after school. But that's when my career kind of took off, because I had a little bit more time. Being a teacher, ooh, it's a lot of work. So I have a lot of mad respect to all the teachers out there. They definitely need a raise. So I'm all for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So at the beginning of this year, we did a show for one of your previous instructors, Bruno Andrade. And we went to Corpus Christi and picked up a bunch of his actual artwork from collectors. And then we did a call for art from his former students, which you were one of them, to submit work. It was a really beautiful show. We had a great turnout. It's actually moved to Mexicarte in Austin, but everything's been put on hold, so we don't know. In that show, we really looked at mentorship and lineage, heritage, things like that. Do you think that, and his work was mainly color theory and patterns and things like that, do you think that his work or style had any impact on your artwork, or did you have a different experience?
Well, like I said, what an emotional day. It was an emotional day, especially when we were put on the spot talking about how we knew Bruno. But like I said, I know him as Papa Bruno because of Trey. I'm friends with his son, and he would always want to go in there and talk chisme. He wanted to know the gossip, what was going on. But to me, I was incredibly bummed because I knew he was a color master, and I knew he was going to teach color theory. And the year I applied, it was Joe Benga. So unfortunately, I didn't get to have him in color theory. But when we were, hanging out at his house, he was always in the garage painting, and he had all this paint, and it was just incredible to see. And that was like my first time seeing like a living, breathing artist doing art, you know what I mean? And it was just incredible. But in terms of style, no, because he's very loose. He's very loose base. You can see sometimes when you get up close to his work, you can kind of see transparency. So that's also when I found out the art doesn't have to be perfect. But no, I'm very OCD in it. And then when we start showing examples, it's very geometric. But he was the first person to believe in me, to understand what I was doing, because I was doing the Calavera portraits. My other professors, Latinos, they were all like, well, why are you doing this? They didn't understand, or nor did they get it. But Bruno helped me, and he got it. He loved the codex, and he was like, no, do that. And I was like, okay, Bruno, I'll do it. But he for sure, one thing, what were you gonna say?
For the catalog, when we asked people for quotes, I remember reading yours and thought it was so powerful because you were talking about how he encouraged you to continue with your style when the other instructors who weren't maybe
right. It was more about technique, and yes, that's a great thing, but ultimately at the end of the day, what artist do you remember the most? It was the ones who have the individual style. And I definitely have style and fashion too. No, just kidding. But it's so, when you see my work, and once you're familiar with it and you see it somewhere else out and about, you're like, oh, that's a Mayra Zamora piece. And I think that's really cool. So that's what I do now as a teacher, because sometimes they're young, they don't want to know all these facts. I'm like, they're little, let them play, let them have a good time, especially when they're in middle school and high school. I'm like, try to find that style. So I've had the good fortune of I met this her name is Heaven, and I met her when she was 11 years old. At the time I used to call her Heaven 11, and she was so good. She did a lot of anime, but she just it was incredible. It was so detailed. And I was like, okay, you're good. You already have it, girl. I said, but I want you to look deeper. Who are you as a person? Show me who you are. And now she's doing this impeccable cutout, very Matisse-like. And she's only now 13, 14 years old. And she already does commissions. She sells work. So I teach them from a very young age that not only, yes, you have to develop a style. It's hard to sell original art. So they have to think like a business person, a businesswoman. Do the commissions, sell stickers, do mugs, whatever you can to do out there. So, and it has to do a lot with my past teachers, Mr. Garza, Bruno, teaching that next generation that they can do it. And they will, and they are.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I guess you answered my next question, which was just about Bruno's teaching style.
Yeah. And I do it too because of Frida. I didn't know Frida when I was reading an autobiography. I had no idea that she was a teacher too. And that she taught students, and her style was the same way.
Oh, wow.
Teaching them more about finding their style and experimenting. So yeah, and I think that's the best way to get results. And sometimes they're like, Miss Zamora, da 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 da. And my favorite thing to tell them is, you already know the answer to your question. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. So yeah.
It's getting them comfortable with trusting themselves, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, can you take us on a little journey from start to finish with one of your pieces?
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit about where you get some of your inspiration, but if you want to talk about that and how you start, and if you use any special techniques that you want to share with us.
Yes, I will show you my nifty ruler. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it's kind of see-through. And this is actually a fashion ruler. When I actually wanted to be a fashion designer. So when I graduated, I was studying fashion design. And long story short, I didn't know that you had to sew clothes. Like, I thought you just drew it and gave it to a seamstress. So long story short, I changed my major to art, and I was very blessed at the University of Incarnate Word to have Andy Varial. And he's also a Chicano artist. Yeah. And he also let me play in the classroom. So, and then I just started doing it, and then I transferred to A&M Corpus Christi. But then this ruler has been a part of my life since 2005, 2006. So usually what I do is, no matter what size it is, whether it's a square or rectangle, I always do at least about 1 inch, 2 inch, depending on the size. I do the 4 corners like this. I don't know if y'all can see, but I'll show you the colored version. And that's what I start out, right? The four like that, and it leaves the 4 corners. And then from there, I just try to, I let myself go. I don't have an initial sketch or a plan. It's whatever shapes come out, that's it. And I think a lot has to do because when I was young, you know, I didn't have a lot of money, so the sketchbook I had, instead of just doing just random sketches, it was more like that one drawing was going to be a end result drawing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right.
There was no sketches. It was just, that's what it was going to be. So like for example, like I said, all of my works, have the 4 corners. And this, like I said, no initial plan. It was just, okay, I think that looks cool. Let me put that line there. And then it created the 2 triangles. Oh, I like that. So it's always the 4 corners. And then I always have a center image. So this kind of work is what I call Chicano pop style. So this one is very much like a formula. And I say like the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this plus this equals my work. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So every now and then people are like, oh, you ever gonna move away from doing the shapes and stuff? And as much as I want to get loose in my work and my hand strokes, it's very difficult for me to do it. And people are like, why do you think you do that? I'm like, honestly, because in the only thing in the world that I can control is my artwork. So I'm in full control. And I think that comes across in my work. It's very geometric, very put together. And I'm also very organized too in my everyday life. So people are like, oh, no wonder you're always there. I'm like, yeah, just be organized and you can get it done.
I love the way you transform, like from your smaller paintings to your murals. They still have the same kind of Pythagorean
Yeah,
theorem.
the same vibe. And like, yeah, the mural that you saw, so the murals, when you see, in my murals, when you see the black and white, is the codex also. So it's very fun to tell viewers, like, so I like to say they're visually and literally participating in the artwork. And it's very cool to see them kind of decipher it and like, oh my God, and then they get it at the end of the day. I'm like, it's so cool. But I know eventually, speaking of the codex, I know eventually I started a piece years ago, probably 2005, 15, where I did the entire codex on a big 30 by 40. And it was my autobiography at the time. And I just kind of put it to the side because it's a lot of work because I don't use painter's tape when I do my paintings. Even with my murals, I try not to, but it depends on the size and time. But people are like, you don't use painter's tape? I'm like, no. They're like, but that makes your work so much easier to use. I'm like, I know. I said, but it's not about that. It's about developing my skill in my hand. So if you look at my work from like 2009, when I started doing that, you can see a lot of the, that the lines aren't that straight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would think that you use painter's tape.
No painter's tape. And people are like, what? I'm like, nope.
That is a good eye.
I know, and that's because I have bad eyesight too.
So I guess speaking about your murals, I've read about some of them that have been very successful and seen images. That's always been something that's kind of one of those dreams that I've never been able to figure out how to do. Not myself make a mural. I'm not really a muralist, but in the city to bring culture and things like that. How do you go about securing that for the students? How do you go about securing those murals? And then have you ever had any crazy moments, or is there something that you learned from the experience of muraling?
Oh yeah, every time we do a mural is a different process. You learn from each one. But I don't even maybe like 2 years ago I finally started calling me a muralist because I'm new to the mural game. And I started doing murals, I would believe 2012 with the Loteria mural downtown. They had a competition. And then I was able to secure 2 Loteria cards, and but to me, it's all about math. A lot of the murals it's all it is math. But then I also work for K-Space Contemporary, which is it's the oldest contemporary art gallery in the Coastal Bend. And they started doing summer camps. And it started with Sandra Gonzalez, and she actually studied in Philadelphia. And as y'all all know, because y'all lived in Philly, it's the city of murals. And she started working for a muralist called Betsy Casas, and she developed this really cool technique and that you paint on this special fabric, and then you do it 5x5 squares. So it's kind of like patches of sorts, you know what I mean? And but to me, I'm not that comfortable with that process yet. I'm still learning. I like to paint directly on the wall because that is more, because Philly, it gets really cold and you can't always be doing murals outside. So that's one of the reasons they developed that style, is for like for the elements. So you're basically working inside, you complete it, and then you take it outside, and then you install it piece by piece on a grid. And then and you have to use a special glue. There's a special technique. So that takes a lot more time, but like I said, it works more because of the elements. Yeah, I'm hardcore old school, and people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, I like painting directly on the wall, like Diego, Orozco, and Siqueiros, like 3 grand muralists. And I feel when I'm out there sweating, like, I mean, it's hot out there, and I tell myself, you know what, Mayra, you have no reason to complain. Your ancestors were out there working the fields. You're doing what you love, so shut up and just do your work. I have to remind myself that, not to complain. But like I said, I just kind of fell into it. And because my education and my background is in education, that is why they hired me to continue doing the summer camps. So hopefully, depending on the corona, we usually work in July. So hopefully by then everything will kind of go back to normal. And now it's grown where we have a downtown location and a location at La Palmera Mall. So I actually teach at La Palmera Mall. And the La Palmera, they're the ones who tell us, we want a mural on this wall, we want a mural on this wall, and then we go measure it, and then they tell us kind of what they want.
So it's a summer camp, and the kids paint the murals?
Yes, they help us paint the mural. So they get one-on-one, what am I trying to say? They get one-on-one guidance with a professional artist. So yes, the majority of the kids who go to us, I kind of recruit them. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, shoot, if I know they're good and they really want to do it, I kind of try to get them to come every year, and there's scholarships available. So the ones who really want it, we basically give them a scholarship for every single week, and it's a 5-week summer camp. And they keep coming back to us, and then some of them, when they're too old, they graduate, and then now we have created student art apprentice. So of course they do all the grunt work, like clean the brushes, get the food ready, but they're learning at the same time. So when they go to the mall, or just when they see a mural out and about, everybody gets like, oh, I got to paint that section. So that's the beautiful thing about the Philly style. It's very community based. Anybody from the community can come in and paint a section, because at the end of the day, you put it up, we have to retouch it. So they really help us, kind of like they help us with the underpainting of the mural. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
I love that.
Yeah. And if anybody's listening, and if they have kids in Corpus, it's open to 12 to 17-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. So getting even deeper into inspiration, so would you say that your art is more technique driven or message based, or what drives you? Is it this need to create? Is it a method of communication? And ultimately, what are you hoping you accomplish with your artwork?
I feel now nowadays it's getting more message based. I did one called Una Nación, and it's kind of based, and I'll show you my t-shirt. It's kind of based off of my flag. This is what I call my Chicano America flag, where I put the green stripes in there too, because I am Chicana. I'm Mexican American. I have stickers of this, and just showing people who I am. But the Una Nación, that's the one where I eliminated the 50 stars, and I put one huge skull. And just that's to remind people, like, I don't believe in racism, because at the end of the day, take away the skin, what are we underneath all of this? We're skeletons. It doesn't matter. We're all one people. We're all human at the end of the day. So that piece, and I'll show you a picture, Amanda, if I can after this, of what it looks like. There's a lot of color symbolism in there. It's basically the story of immigration, people crossing the border. The yellow represents the heat and the desert. The orange represents the mountains that they have to cross. The blues around the borders. And then I have one strip in between the blues, and that's supposed to represent the blood that has been spilled at the border. And then the four corners, it's black and white to represent, it's my art signature, so I don't sign my artwork. So that's why I always have the 4 corners, so you know that's like my art signature. But in that specific painting, it was representing the detention centers, like the black and white jumpsuits, you know. And trying to think what else. There was purples to represent the night sky, greens for the earth. So that one was probably the most most symbolic one that I've done to date. But other than that, it's more about color theory. I love ojos. I mean, I'm obsessed with eyes. And now I'm starting to see eyeballs everywhere in jewelry, clothing. So in a way, I'm kind of like, oh man, like they're stealing my thunder. But at the same time, it's very cool to see it. But for me, the ojo represents, because I'm 33. When I feel sick, I call my mom like, me siento mala. And she's like, pues ya sabes qué hacer. She's like, get that egg and cure yourself an ojo. So, and it's very cool when I'm doing presentations, especially with little kids. Like, do y'all know about el ojo? Half of the kids raise their hand, and some kids are like, what are you talking about? So it's also an educational tool. And it's cool to hear their stories. Oh yeah, my abuela did that, or my mom did that to me, and stuff like that. And then the pan dulce, I mean, come on. We eat pan dulce like nobody's business. And I do the concha because I love a concha. And then I started doing empanadas because empanadas are my favorite. And then the mini taquitos because I love food, but it's a deeper meaning behind the taquito. It's like what brings people together. no matter what culture in, food. And that's why I like the taquitos. And come on, the Valley has the best tacos. That's why I was so bummed too that I didn't get to go to the reception. And what else have I done? The Tex-Mex. I do a Tex-Mex flag also to represent that I'm Tejana. And so a lot of it, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Leslie Moody Castro. She is a art critic I based out of Austin and Mexico. And I had the good fortune, she came to my studio and she was the one that told me that my paintings are kind of like portraits. And even though they're very geometric, I was like, oh, I can see that because they're an extension of who I am. And yeah. So it's very much, and you asked me what I'm inspired by, and like everything and everyone. And I'm not afraid of color either. I'm not afraid to put two colors that you don't think would normally work together. I love to especially say pink and brown. I love pink and brown color combo. And people are like, where'd you get that idea? From watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch as a girl. I'm pretty sure it was her. And she was wearing this outfit. I would never forget that color combo. And then I love blue and red a lot. And that's, to me, the blue and red together is real Mexicano. Like, I see that a lot when I go to Mexico or across the border. And yeah, I'm not afraid of color. And I always joke around that it's like my goal is to make somebody throw up because the colors are so intense that your eyes can't take it. Not to be gross, but that would be kind of cool. Like, oh, I can't take it.
Okay, well, we have, I don't know if we have 3 minutes left or if Zoom's going to extend our time, but I guess this is the last question. And if you want to just answer real quickly and then we'll wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to say to the students? Any advice for staying motivated or productive during this time, during COVID?
Yes, like rest if you need a rest. Yes, it's okay to get that artist block. We all get it. It's not a bad thing to do nothing. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, because when you do nothing, you get antsy and the creative juices come in and you're like, oh, I gotta do something. So when you get that urge, just do whatever, even if it's a crappy painting, crappy drawing, it doesn't matter. Once you get over that little hunch, then the good stuff will come. But other than that too is the art of schmoozing. It's very important. We learned it from Bruno too. Joe Pena always says it too, the art of schmoozing. The art world is very subjective. You can be the best artist in the world, but if you're not out there promoting yourself, talking to people, networking, who's going to know who you are? So you have to kind of get over that little hump, that little fear of speaking to someone, and also be ready to talk about your artwork. So I told my students, like, you can tell who's a real artist and not. And they're like, what do you mean? Because if they can really talk about the work and said, like, what inspired you? I don't know. Yes, you do know what, don't be afraid to be able to speak. And also to the students is you have to think of this like a business. And I said it earlier in the conversation, it's hard to sell original art. It really is. But you can have prints. You say you're selling a $500 painting, but you have a $10 print. So you can do that. You can sell stickers, coffee mugs, t-shirts. Like I said, this is one of my merchandise, and that's how I make my extra money. And to never give up. And I hate saying this, and I hope the art students are watching this. Some of them will not, after they graduate, some of them will not continue doing art. And I have some friends who are very more technique better than I am, but life happens.
Right.
So like, make sure if you're in the art department and you're doing an art degree, this is really what you want to do, because it is a hard road. It's not easy whatsoever.
I think the art degree is wonderful though, because it can feed into so many other degrees.
Oh yeah. Graphic design. I always tell people, like, technology is so advancing right now. So if you know how to work the computer and do graphic design, that can get you extra jobs. Photography, everybody loves their photos,
right.
Taking photos. So, start a side business.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll finish. That way we don't get cut off.
All right.
So thank you, Mayra. Thank you for your
time.
Thank you for giving us a look inside of your life for a little bit. Thank you, Amanda. You're always so thoughtful and smart. And thank you for the students and the larger community tuning in. Bye. Take care of yourself.
That was really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
All right. Bye.